The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the individual guests. If you're a sensitive snowflake that may get easily offended, then turn this off immediately. If you want to hear the real truth about the gun culture, then stick around. This is the Armed Citizen Podcast. What's going on, my Ghost Squad? Welcome to the Armed Citizen Podcast Live. This is episode number 114. We're coming to you live from the Ghost Tactical Production Studio, streaming live on YouTube and simulcasting as always over on gunchannels.com. If you're not familiar with gunchannels.com by now, then I don't know what to tell you. It's a great pro-gun, pro-2A community that started 6 years ago this month by G-Webs. And it was built by gun owners for gun owners to have discussions just like this. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to have a discussion that's kind of off firearms related, because I think this is something that it stretches beyond the parameters of the gun community. This is in generalities of social media influencers, and can and should we be able to trust what they say? And before we get going on that, we're going to bring in our special guest tonight, coming in from Washington State, from We the Female. We got Carrie Sloan. What's up, Carrie? You're muted. Let me unmute you. There you go. You're good.
How's it going, gentlemen?
Good to go. And from Arizona, we've got the Godfather himself. What's up, G?
Hey, thanks for the invite.
You got it. And from the great state of Texas, and someone who has probably got some pretty interesting news that he's announced earlier, but he might want to talk about it a little bit. The tactical leprechaun himself. What's up, Clover?
Hey, man. What's happening?
Not much. Sounds like you had a good day.
It was a great day in this county. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to tell everybody? I'm sure everyone's kind of seen your channel and all that, but in case they haven't, do you want to kind of catch everybody up?
Yeah, our County Court of Commissioners passed a resolution declaring our county a 2A sanctuary county. I actually got to read the resolution a few days ago or something like that. But very well written, well spelled out resolution. I don't know if honestly, I haven't looked at many of the other counties anyway, across Texas or across the nation to see how similar. I got to figure that most of those resolutions are probably going to be kind of specific to that area or that state, because certain governing bodies and etiquette and procedure and stuff like that could be different. But I thought pretty well written. Decent turnout, I guess. I mean, it's aggravating when, you know, your public servants and your local politicians and the decision makers in your county meet, you know, and discuss business and do things on a Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock. Average Joe Q taxpayer out there is probably at work during that time, and that gets a little aggravating. But despite that, I was really pleased with the turnout. We had we're going to have a really good primary anyway. Not much of a general election around here. Democrats don't really stand a chance if you got a D on your name on the ticket. But going to have an interesting primary, I think, in 2020 for sheriff. And all of the candidates were there, which was great to see them out and behind this and supporting this. I was disappointed that none of them got up and spoke. You know, if you're not familiar with how these procedures work, I mean, you should be able to go in and you'll fill out some type of a little form and speak on whatever agenda item, you know, is being discussed. And yeah, sadly, I was the only one that actually got up and done it. And I don't know why, but I was. And that it didn't bother me at first, but the more I've thought about it today, it bothers me a little more and a little more and a little more, because not because of what's kind of cool that happened because of me speaking, but because how much more could that have been amplified, or what kind of a different optics, or how much more would that have resonated? I think people went into this, they knew I knew everybody in the room. Some people I liked more than others, right? Some people I called friends. Some were kind of frenemies. Some were, you could almost call them enemies, I think. But we all pretty much knew each other, everybody in the room, and that's just the way the community and the counties are around here. And so it was one of them things where we were pretty sure it was going to pass, wasn't a problem. One of the commissioners did not show up, and that kind of worried us a little bit that, okay, well, if we got somebody that detracts or ham haws or wants to delay it or do something, I mean, we're down a commissioner. So, what are we going to do here? But ultimately, it passed unanimously. And I think because everybody expected that, they just kind of sit back and didn't say anything. And that's aggravating because just because you perceive a win doesn't mean that it's like it's like taking a knee in football almost, which I get it to an extent. I guess you don't want players hurt if you're that far ahead of the game or whatever. But that's not really how the game's played. You feel me?
Sure.
And so it's aggravating in that sense. And then after I did my speech, like I said, the papers kind of glommed onto me. They're like, got me out in the hall and cornered me and, hey, talk to me about this, that, and the other. And then the TV people did. So, I will be in the papers around this story. Some of my quotes and stuff will be in there. I'll be on already been on the nightly news on a couple of channels, talking with them. So it's one of them things to where how many other people in the room, I'm not bragging on myself, I'm saying how many other people in that room, especially those sheriff candidates, had the opportunity to get a message out and a word out and expand that reach beyond that room. And they did not stand up and they did not speak and they did not take that opportunity. So if I can say one thing and then get out of here because I'm eating up all your time, it's
all good.
people out there when we're dealing with these 2A issues. Is it nerve-wracking? Is it stressful? Is it, are you going to have anxiety? Yes. But get up, stand up, speak your piece, because you never know where it's going to lead until you do that. So, and I'll get going because we got more to talk about.
Yeah, we got a lot more to talk about, but I was going to say congratulations to your county. I hope a lot more counties follow suit. So, what we're going to talk about tonight is about social media influencers and whether or not you can or should trust them, what goes into being a social media influencer, and as viewers and consumers and all of that out here in public, what we look for and what we're looking to see if someone's going to influence us. And a lot of it comes down to whether or not you believe this person or is credible, or do you think them as an entertainer, or do you look at them as someone who is leading the fight in some way, or they're giving you positive, or they're giving you information that's going to allow you or help you make decisions in your own life. I look at social media influencers the same way as I look at leaders. And I have a thing where I've always said that if you have to continuously tell people that you're a leader, then you're not a leader. If you have to continuously tell people that you're an influencer, then you're not. Those things should happen naturally. And it's actually up to the individual person whether or not they believe you or they look at you as a social media influencer. And I think a lot of things have happened, especially over the last weekend, that we're not really going to touch on because this goes much further and touches way out above and beyond the gun community. But there were some things that happened this weekend that I think we all know about, that there were some influencers that got involved that maybe wish they shouldn't have, in the sense that they did anymore. But we're going to talk about that. And I want to kind of start the question. I want to start with Carrie. And I want you to think of this as your own personal, as a viewer and a consumer of content, not as someone, we're all in this room. All of us guys are creators. We try to be activists. We try to do things in a positive manner to educate and bring information out. That doesn't mean that we're influencers. That's up to you to decide if we're influencers or not. So I want to bring Carrie in and say, when you're watching someone or you're listening to a podcast or whatever the social media platform is, what kind of characteristics do you look in a person that makes you decide that you're going to allow them to influence some maybe decisions in your life?
So can you hear me? You got me okay?
Yeah, we're good.
I can't find my microphone.
Microphone.
So I want to, before I jump into this, I want to actually offer a different perspective on the word influencer. Excuse me. There was KD is actually he and I had a big conversation about this and the fact that there's two different types of people and I'm sure in any genre, right? I'm sure that it's not just gun culture, right? I'm sure it's probably any sort of industry or culture. But for this, that in the gun culture, there's two different types of influencing, right? There are influencers and there are people who influence. And Katie and I like to think of ourselves as people who influence because we're not out there to be influencers. We're not getting paid. Influencer is a profession now. It is actually a profession, and you get paid to influence people to purchase product, and that's not what we do. So I don't watch reviews. I don't watch any of them because I'm not a gun girl. I don't. So, and I wouldn't understand half of what they're saying anyway. To be really honest with you, I'd sit there and go, okay, shoot, can I just go shoot it? I don't know. But that being said, one of the things that I think has an impact is when an influencer or YouTuber, because I know that some people, there's kind of that fine line too between whether they classify themselves as an influencer as a profession or whatever. But I think when they use that voice to be an advocate, I think that can be a very powerful tool. And I think that is when that influencer by profession becomes somebody who's influencing, if that makes any sense. So, yeah. So I think that in terms of me and what would inspire me, it would be me seeing somebody who is going to actually make the effort to use the reach that they have created to inspire people to become active defending their rights. That's what would bring me to call to action or make me want to watch somebody's stuff. But for me personally, just to go watch a gun video or whatever, I don't think it does it. Now here's the interesting thing, right? We tend in the gun community to be really I think a little guiltier than a lot because we have been sequestered by society a little bit more to kind of be in an echo chamber, whether we like to think we are or not. And when you had that, what was that look for? Am I right?
No, I think that we are literally living this moment in a huge echo chamber, and people don't realize that.
Yeah, and I agree. So, and I think that but we have to remember there are a lot of people that watch these videos from influencers that are not gun culture people, they're gun people, right? So like me, I want to be a voice in and out of the community for this outreach and awareness. So when I see an influencer who's actually using their broad spectrum to get across motivation for some of that advocacy, that's going to tend to make me want to pay attention to them a little bit more because they're actually getting to people outside of the culture to influence change as opposed to being an influencer.
Yeah, and I'll kind of go back to a statement you made earlier on in your thing is influencing versus influencer, and I think that the term social media influencer, and it's only happened recently that it probably has become kind of a dirty word. It's become this thing, and I think that a lot of us when we started out, we wanted to put out information from our perspective and our point of view. And it's interesting that, people will get called shills and all of that. And a lot of it comes down to, I don't necessarily agree that you have to be a paid advertiser or whatever you want to call it to be an influencer. I think that what I was trying to say in my opening was an influencer is someone in my eyes, that it's going to give input or educate you or bring information to you that you might not know, that might influence a decision or the way you live your life, or open your eyes to something that you never even thought of before. And
Right.
unfortunately, you are right. Unfortunately, the term influencer might have the media side of things. The definition might get changed a little bit.
Right.
So I want to, and it's sad, but I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you 100%. I want to bring Clover in now and ask you this: at what point does putting out information as a social media personality, or whatever you want to call us, at what point does it become dangerous to put out information that could cause harm?
I think at the point, I think that, I don't know, that's kind of a tricky question. Point to cause bodily harm or just harm in general?
Well, I think that it could cause harm. I would say bodily harm, because we saw things happen this weekend that could have been very harmful.
Right.
Because of
you can harm businesses, you can get people fired, you can, there's a whole host of things that's not, injury or death to a person, type stuff that, we've got slander and libel, and we've got so many other things, in play when we talk about harm. So in the broader sense of harm, I think that when somebody who is an influencer, is a creator, is a YouTuber, is a podcast, whatever label that we're putting on it today, there's so many of them.
Sure.
That I think at what point that person goes two routes. Number one, they do not collect all the factual information they can possibly collect before they start throwing stuff out there and interjecting opinion on it. It's one thing to say, breaking news, there was a incident in X city tonight, more information at 11, and saying, breaking news, there's an incident that happened in X city tonight, and it was perpetrated by this person, and this is exactly what happened, and more at 11, and then 11 o'clock comes, and the story that you just told, who did it and what happened, is totally different than you said it before. Don't put stuff out there, or at least if you put it out there as, this is speculation, this is only what we know at this time, that's been reported at this time. Caveat that stuff. Too many people put stuff out there as definitive, and this happens not just with like the issue over the weekend. This happens with legislation that's proposed. This happens with the new Glock that comes out. People have these hardline stances that they lay down this definitive video that this gun is crap. This bill says this. This guy did this. And it's these hardline definitive things that get you in trouble when you don't have that hardline definitive factual data to back that up yet. And then on the flip side of that, people can make mistakes. People can assume that source was legit. People can assume that okay, this is factual data. This, let's say, police department said this, or this government agency report said this, and you got it from what you thought was a factual source. Then you're proven to be wrong, and you don't come out and man up and say, hey, I need to correct the record here. I was right in my thinking. I was wrong in the execution. I was wrong with the numbers. I was wrong with this, whatever it might be. So that opportunity to self-correct, so many people want to double down, right? Because they seem, in my mind anyway, when we're talking about this influencing game, podcasters, creators, whatever, it almost seems like some of them get the attitude that they're too big to fail. They're too big to be wrong. They're too big to admit that they're human just like everybody else. We all make mistakes. And that would actually go further, I think, to the larger question of the audience trusting them. I think that type of attitude and approach would lend itself more to the audience liking and trusting them, because they'll know, like, hey, he just said this, and I'm going to believe him for now, because if he's wrong, he's going to come back and tell me, and I'm going to get the real story one way or the other. So it will increase that trust factor.
I see the question out there from Jacob, and that's a wonderful question. We will touch on that. We'll probably come back here a little bit later, but we're going to continue discussion on this right now. And I know what you're saying, because Clover we see it it's interesting because we see it in the mainstream media all the time. How many times does something bad happen? It doesn't have to be gun related, just something bad happen, and the news outlets, the 24-hour news outlets, they want to be the first ones to break the story. So they will literally put out information that they probably haven't filtered or vetted yet to make sure that they're first. And, when a newspaper does it, sometimes they'll issue a retraction. They'll put it on page 13 in a very small corner. Hey, we made a mistake. Sorry. You very rarely see it on a cable news network or whatever. But I'm going to bring G in on this. At what point, if you're going to be on social media and you're going to try to put information out, at what point, you've been doing this a long time, but at what point, G, do we have, if we're going to decide to put information about live happenings or something that's going on right then, how much do we have responsibility to be reporters at that point instead of social media personalities?
None, unless you're know how to be a journalist and have a press pass from the city or something. There's a big difference between being a journalist and having a camera. Same way it's a big difference between being an accomplished musician who's got, credentials and owning a guitar. So you can have a press pass from SHOT Show or something from NSSF, an organization for an industry, or you can have a press pass from a city where you probably have to do some kind of background check or something. And then that means you can go behind police lines and you are press. I'm guessing they bet that. I don't know. But yeah, I think there's a big difference between just because you have a camera, assuming that somehow you're the whatever eyes and ears of the world. But on the second side of that, the neat thing about the internet, the reason I'm still in this, is I don't have some reverence to somebody else who has whatever the means or the education or the ability or whatever has been sanctioned, like the press. We have democratization of dissemination of information now with cameras and tech and the internet, and just the knowledge now that, what used to be pen pals and the occasional people that met each other, when they traveled, is now we are comfortable. We're completely adapted and able to have friends that are in other states and other countries, across borders, across divisions of everything. We're used to that now, that we're accustomed to that. So influencers, or whatever you want to call that, I think with the original question, is a two-sided thing. Anybody can stand up and say, I am, but it requires the other side of the equation, the audience, to say they are, or to agree they are. So audiences have to grow and learn the same way influencers. We're free and we're capitalists. So you can get a bunch of jerks stand up just as much as you can get a bunch of excellent people stand up. Buyer beware, caveat emptor. You can't just take anything for granted. So get better at being an audience, and we're all doing it at the same time. Ideally, the influencers, the creators of content, build stuff that adapts to people's concerns or whatever. But this is a two-edged thing. And this is, if we're talking about what happened on Saturday, I didn't really pay attention, but this is a one-of-a-kind instance over at least 15 years that I've been paying attention. To suggest that we need to scold the community or congratulate the community is ridiculous. It's a one instance. Let's learn from it and move on. Glean what we can and get stronger. And again, it's the people who have cameras and the people who watch are both sides of the equation.
Well, and on that, I want to, can I add something to that right quick? Because I, being, especially after this 2A rally, I've got I'm in some groups and stuff, watching people and some dynamics and stuff and I'm just sitting back watching it because I have a whole other reason that I want to address that, and it pisses me off that I've been blown off about it. Not you guys, but because I'd have told y'all by now. But there's some whole other components to this that with this wife that are concerning to me. But when we are in a culture of when everybody in this gun community is talking out of their asses about how we need to unify, and the minute I am catching up in a group text, and there are members of this gun community slamming other people, or I've also seen being pious because they chose not to get involved. That is incredibly immature and absolutely unnecessary. So it's only creating nobody needs to get involved. And if in like G was saying, and if it's right or wrong or whatever, we don't need each other sitting there talking shit about each other about whether they were right or wrong, because that's only going to create more rifts between us. Let's face it. I mean, one of the elephants in the room with this that nobody is talking about, other than the wife thing, which is a component for me, but in general, is this probably set the Second Amendment movement back a year or two when this actually hits the big, you know what I mean? If this hits national news, we're in deep shit. Fortunately, right now, a lot of people still haven't heard about this, but if this ends up becoming a thing, I mean, it's bad enough like it is, right? He went from 1,000 followers to 100, and he's over 150,000, I guess, maybe now, in 24 hours, right? So, and it keeps going up,
And
right?
there's $10,000 that have been raised for his legal fees by
In
now.
12 hours, right? In 12 hours. So where was that money for the domestic violence that, the order from his wife, right? Because that is a thing.
Right.
So why aren't they taking that money and donating it to domestic violence, having a domestic violence survivor fucking come out publicly and say something and donate that? Like, there's some huge opportunities here to be positive influencers and create a positive impact on things that are concerns for reasons they try to take our guns, and spin that into a positive as we are taking these responsibilities, and nobody is doing that. Instead, everybody is sitting there talking shit about everybody else, and it's absolutely ridiculous, when the reality is that this is a huge PR slam for the gun culture. Huge.
Yeah, and I want to bring up
the huge part, but I like the silver lining part, because you're right. You have to look at it where if a bunch of money can get raised, that's, everybody knows that it happens all the time. But does it happen in our community? And when it gets raised with, like, I don't know the details, but it sounds like, not. I don't think it doesn't sound like this guy set this up, but the way it went down, everybody's like, oh shoot, this was not the perfect storm or whatever. And like you're saying, like, that's an embarrassment for sure. But is it like irreversible or something? No. I mean, like,
No.
is it going to be like the biggest echo ever? No. But what we can look at it is go, wow, that's a lot of money raised. Like Carrie just said, what if we actually raised that for something worthwhile? Or what if we did that on a regular basis? Because it's really not that big of an effort in the grand scheme of things. It's not like the effort to save a whole area from a hurricane or something. So it's not real. But I mean, as far as like a community doing something, at least it lets us say, like, an embarrassment is something you remember. So you learn from your mistakes or whatever. Let's not just look at the way people behave because of it, but look at what was accomplished and go, oh, wow, like you're saying, like, we could use that towards something positive.
Well, why didn't they just take that money that they raised instead of refunding it and saying, look, here's the option that we're going to do with this. If this comes out to be a domestic violence case, right? FPC had a huge moment that they could have saved face with this. I'm just going to call that out, right? They threw up $5,000 right away. And I'm an FPC supporter. Right? I'm a lifetime member of FPC. I mean, I fiercely support them. They sponsor my organization. But they had that moment, right? And then they could have come out and said, instead of refunding the money, they could have given people the option to say, this is looking like it's a DV situation. I mean, there was a restraining order that is on record. We do know that. Why, how do you feel about this money now being turned around and given to this, right? Some national domestic violence hotline, whatever, right? I mean, or like, pro-gun woman or We the Female, or right? Something, right? Any sort of organization. And then used it as a PR spin for the gun community, saying, look, this is not acceptable in the gun community. They manipulated this guy. This is what narcissism does, right? Narcissists.
Okay, hold on. I don't want to stop you midpoint, but we're getting way off of where we're trying to go down this. I do not want this to be about Saturday night. We'll come back towards the end, but I'll let you finish that point. But what I want to kind of get back on track here is about what we can do for the next step. And we've talked about this already. What's next? What do we learn from this? And I love what G was saying. What do we learn from this? I want to bring Clover in real quick and ask that, from what we saw on Saturday night, and we saw some, what people would consider big dogs, big names, big influencers, big personalities within our community with basically a call to arms saying, hey, let's go support this guy. Let's get to his house. And there have been anywhere from what I've heard from 2 to 100 people that showed up at this house. Now, who knows the real story? What I will say about this is, looking back on this, we found out information that was wrong. So let's transition back to the topic and say, as someone who is in the social media, and we are part of the media, we call ourselves the new media. So if we're going to be media personalities and we're going to put information out for our followers or our listeners to hear, and we're going to give our side of things and maybe extract them to do something to help the situation, we probably should know at least some of the facts. That's going back to what the cable news networks is. They put information out there without knowing all the facts, and next thing you know, they've made it into something that it really wasn't. So, Clover, I ask you this. What can we do to learn from this situation so that we don't make the same mistakes? I say we, not us in this room, obviously, but people in the community and in the social media don't make the same mistakes the next time.
Can I be completely arrogant and pompous for a minute? Is that allowed?
Absolutely. I mean, sure.
I don't know
only that you can do this knowing that I'm going to call bullshit on you if I need to.
Well, there
I
you go.
don't know. You're free to call whatever you like. I don't know that I will personally learn anything. And there's a point to me saying this. I don't know that I'll personally learn anything because I've sort of seen the writing on the wall before it ever even got to the point of blowing up. There was stuff that just, I was critically thinking about it and looking at these different things that was coming in, and it didn't make sense. And so that spins me back around to what I guess G-Webs was mentioning earlier, and he was absolutely right about this, that it's a double-sided coin. I call it a circular thing, where said creator puts out dramatic content, viewers eat it up, it's not accurate, so they don't hold him accountable. He gets some views, so he does it again. You know, there's no repercussions to it or anything, right? There's no penalty to, you know, I need to be more diligent about getting my facts out there and stuff. And that has to do with the viewer side not holding those particular people accountable. And I think that if there was, with the follower viewership, that sort of thing, if there was a little more standoffish attitude, a little more scrutiny, you know, just breathe and count to 10. You know what I mean? When you see things like that pop up, you know, I mean, what was it? Jefferson said, you know, question everything with boldness, even if there's a creator, because if there is a creator, he prefers, you know, questions over blindfolded fear or whatever. I'm paraphrasing, but there's nothing wrong with questioning situations. That doesn't make you less of a patriot or, you know, less knowledgeable in a situation. It's going to end up, if anything, making you more knowledgeable in a situation. And so just because you're out there and you're a viewer or you're a follower or whatever, and you view the content from these people and the stuff that these people put out, you don't want to do that yourself, and you enjoy what that person does, right? You love your job and your family, and you just want to be able to watch a YouTube video every now and then, or whatever it might be, a live stream. That's cool. I get it. It's entertainment. It's information, I guess, or whatever you want to call it. And so that does not preclude you from being able to, you should be able to think for yourself and think critically and form your own opinions and that sort of thing. So I guess what I'm saying is, for the viewers and stuff out there, and I've said this for a long time, Ghost, you know this, G, I know has heard me say this, you know, don't put me on a pedestal, anybody on this panel on a pedestal, anybody on YouTube, podcast format, any of these people on a pedestal. They're human beings. They are doing nothing that you could not get off your rump and do if you wanted to do it. And so just don't do it. I mean, view it for and what we do as what it is.
Yeah, and there's a couple comments out there that I want to get to. I want to say, let me go find this first one. It was right up here. And Einstein says, can't we say that some, like Mr. Guns and Gear, are professionals and should be held to a higher standard than regular Joes? Hell no. What makes Mr. Guns and Gears special? Because he has a lot of subscribers on YouTube. You know, anyone can go on YouTube and put a kick in the balls video up and get 1 million subscribers. I think that if you look at Mr. Guns and Gear or people like him as a respected voice and you respect their opinion, then that's up to you to hold them to a higher standard. But I don't think any person on here needs to be held to a higher standard, because if you're doing that, then you're giving them the power of influence without them earning it necessarily.
So here is where the higher standard for me comes into play, right? If we were talking Marine Corps tactics and
Sure.
you totally screwed the pooch on something, then okay, maybe you need to be held to a little higher standard because that's kind of your wheelhouse expertise and you screwed up. You feel me? If it was about DV and Carrie was talking and Carrie screwed up, maybe so, because she is taking it upon herself to be an ambassador and an authority in that particular subject, right? But when you've got people out here that are commenting and following on situations and subjects, because let's not pin this down just to what happened over the weekend, but somebody that's got zero experience with long range rifles, out there trying to sell all of these long range rifles is the greatest thing since sliced bread. All they own or ever mess with is pistols. And that's where their expertise lies, is in pistols. Then that's a little different because they don't have the knowledge for that. And that's where the viewers and stuff and the followers need to be aware of what does that particular person that you're listening to, what are they projecting? What are they claiming to know about? Okay. And in that sense, then I don't have a problem maybe with expecting a little better or a little more from them.
Yeah, I want to send a quick shout out to Mandatory Carey. He's in a $10 super chat. Thank you, my brother. He says, back to work. We need to be more cautious in the future. That is true. So, I think that's something I think maybe a kitty out there says that I have a 24-hour rule for events. It takes about that amount of time for the truth to start trickling out or to be vetted. That's exactly right. And that's the whole point I was trying to make is when you start trying to put information out, and if you're going to put information out that you're going to try to break a story or you're trying to educate people on what's going on, if it's alive happening, it's something it's brand new, don't try to rush to be the first person out there because it could come in and backfire on you. There's a nice discussion go out there. Budget Guns and Gear says, Clover, you can put me on a pedestal and he's trustworthy. Just give me your bank info and social security number and he'll prove it. So absolutely. I think that there's a lot to be said out there about, once again, we're talking about influencers and all of that. And I think that a lot of people sometimes take themselves too seriously. I think that people, and we all know them. We all know people that get into this to be famous. We know that.
That Steve Fisher guy, he's a dick. Whoa. It's all about being a celebrity, that guy. Oof.
Yeah, it's all about, for some people, the fame, the fortune, and all that. There are people out there that are doing this for the right reason, and they just happen to get lucky and get people that must think that they like their personality, they like what they have to say. And you're right, Clover, when it comes down to subject matter, and Steve was out there talking about subject matter experts. It brings up to a point. I was having a discussion with a buddy of mine over the weekend and talking about a trainer, and I'm not going to mention the names because I want you to go do your own research and all that. But there are trainers and there are people out there that claim certain things about their background, about what they've done, who they've trained, who they've worked with, what they, whatever the background is. And for the most part, we have no way of knowing if it's true or not, or we have no way or no reason to not believe them until they give us the reason not to believe them. So I think what you're talking about, Clover, earlier is question everything. I think the biggest thing we can come out with is, as social media personalities, and if you're out there putting information out, whether you have 1 subscriber or 10 million subscribers or followers or whatever the platform that you're using, you have influence possibly over the people that watch or listen to, if they allow you to influence them. So if you're talking about something and you have one person that could be watching or listening, understand that it's your responsibility to a certain extent. This is my beliefs. G might disagree with me, but it's my belief that you have a responsibility to make sure you're putting information that is not harmful towards somebody or another subject or completely wrong, or try to put your opinion out as fact. I think you have that responsibility, but what we should be doing is trying to get the people that watch or listen to us to take in what we're saying and then leave and go do their own research and come up with their own opinion. Now, if what we have to say helps form an opinion, great. If not, great. But I think you're right, Clover. Question everything. Go find out for yourself and make your own assumptions. You guys can jump in. You guys have been doing this a long time with me, so jump in. Don't talk over anybody else, but jump in and say what you got to say about anything that's been talked about. I know, Carrie, you're just biting at the bit. You look like you just got to have something to say, so go for it.
I think that if this is about influencers, right? I mean, if that's what this is about, and we're talking about the power of influencers here.
Correct.
There are opportunities that these people could have taken post incident, whether good, bad, whether they should have acted, not acted, or whatever, to teach the community some valuable things. And I'll save my personal that thing that I can guarantee you half the people on this, I can guarantee you, with the exception maybe 2 people that have already heard it, or maybe 3 that would go, oh shit, she was right. Because I know that y'all aren't thinking about this. So there are some teachable moments in this that whether are going to be glaringly obvious or not. And that is what's frustrating me, is if we're talking about the impact of influencers and whether they can or cannot have that influence, this is something that they could be doing with some of these teaching moments. And I find it incredibly frustrating and disappointing that those opportunities are not being taken. So, and it's really, it's disheartening and discouraging for those of us out there busting our asses to try to get people to understand why they need to become active, or why your voices matter, when you've got these influencers who can light fires under these people to go and understand these things, and it's not being done. So
don't be discouraged, because these people are not accomplished. And sometimes stood there and it happened around them, and other times they were lucky. Sometimes it was diligent effort and it was the result of hard work, but often it was just a bit of effort and a bit of extraordinary circumstances, and they've accomplished whatever it is they're accomplished at. But I'll say it again, I don't disagree with you at all. It's always frustrating, and trust me, wait a couple of more decades and be frustrated how many people could have done better with what they had. But instead of getting frustrated with an individual who performs poorly with the resources that they have available to them, let's remember that, again, all of this is a two-way street. An audience is a bunch of people who are focused on a whatever creator of content. Like I just said, those people didn't get there through strategy and hard work and talent and worth. They got there through lots of reasons, and it's a fickle place to be. It's a fickle place to be. So as an audience, let's challenge the audience. These people performed poorly. Are they still your heroes? They're not sports teams where you're invested with all kinds of expensive merchandise. Probably some of them have merchandise, I guess, but most of the time it's a fickle relationship with these people. And if they're not performing to your expectation, next. And there's people like Carrie who are going to offer worth and value and appreciate the resource that you might give them, or the opportunity that they have, and shine with it. So don't be discouraged. Just remember that we live in this society, and then remember that you need to perform too. You don't get to have success and then hang it on a wall and point to it for the rest of your life. That's what I did. So you have to. It ain't that world anymore. You perform constantly. So these people that performed poorly, next.
Yeah,
that's a great point.
Yeah, it is a great point, and hold them accountable for their, if it there are certain ones that really jumped the shark with it. Like I saw somebody say that they really went off the end with it, and doubling down or what have you, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, that was probably not the best
Well, I'll tell you, and this is something, and this is not just in this instance. I'm going to come to Clover here. He sounds like he's just biting at the bullet to jump in, but I'm going to come to you.
Yeah, I wish I'd have got in before G, but that's okay.
Well, you can give a rebuttal to G and all that, but what you just said about doubling down, I think that there are issues that when someone goes out and makes statements or claims about something that's going on, and then they come to find out that the information that they put out was wrong, not because they just lied or made mistakes, it's that they didn't have the information themselves. What really frustrates me is the next day, instead of coming out once again and saying, hey, I still think we should support this part of it because of this, but I want to come back and say, hey, there were instances and there were circumstances that I wasn't aware, that none of us were aware of when we were making some of these statements. But no. Some people are literally doubling down in their lives, and they're trying to not only double down that their stance was ultimately correct, they're trying to justify why they're doubling down. If you're doubling down, there should be no reason for you to have to try to justify the double down. It should be plain and simple, obvious to everybody. But that's another part of it that gets me. Clover, I know that you wanted to come in, so jump on in, bro.
Well, yeah, I mean, Carrie had said some things a second ago that provoked some thought from me, and that's what this is all about. And at the end of the day, that's what we have to cherish and relish is, we got conversation, communication, dialogue and discussion is the way I always like to word it. And those are great things. But, to offer an excuse or maybe some clarity around what Carrie said about why did these people not take the opportunity or whatever to turn things around in this particular situation. And with that, I go back to what I said before, that you've got people that anybody can get on. There's no, as G has pointed out, there's really no credentials and things like that to speak of. You turn on a camera, you build a following, and that following and all of that kind of gives you clout and whatever. And so they're commenting on and doing content on and putting opinions out and all this kind of stuff on things that are honestly outside of their wheelhouse. And so they're not seeing like somebody that would be inside the fray on a particular issue. And I deal with this, Carrie deals with this with DV, the same way I deal with this with youth issues with people. People talk out their butt. They have no clue what they're talking about, in my opinion. So a lot of times when they're dealing with youth and they're dealing with kids, it's a totally different situation than adults, and people want to treat the same way. And I totally don't agree with what they're saying. Why? Because that's more my wheelhouse, and I've got, extended education and experience and learning in that arena. So, I don't necessarily fault them for that. That being said, and I think the overarching point maybe of what Carrie was getting at here, and she can certainly chime in and confirm this, is sort of what I talked about at the first of the show with the Second Amendment sanctuary thing, is that, opportunity presents itself quite often. And Ghost, I know you're this way. I know for a fact you're this way. Nothing ticks me off more than when people just blatantly, blindly do not see opportunity there. It's right. So aggravating. And so I get the frustration that Carrie's got.
I literally teach that actually. Before I knew Gun World existed, I'm a day spa owner and a professional speaker. I don't know if any of you know that. Some of you might. And I speak at women's conferences literally on how to recognize, seize, and create opportunity. Clearly that's, I think if you followed me for any period of time, you probably know that and seeing that I've been able to do that. But I actually teach that. It's a legitimate course I teach. I wanted to answer right quick, just somebody, this is off topic, that, give me just a minute, okay? That's my daughter, sorry. That somebody was talking about the rallies in Washington State, and they said that they've never been to a rally that's been more than, then clearly you probably were not at that rally that I spoke at in April, instead of going to NRAM when there was 2,600 people there. So maybe we need to get you better connected with, somebody in New York. Hi, it's good to see you. They made a comment. I can't respond in the group chat, for some reason. But yeah, so yes, you can get involved. I know G kind of chimed in there with what the power of rallies can be. But if you need to be better connected for those types of things, I can get you into the event. You can send me a message and I can help you with that.
Really, like gun shows too. It's like you could sit there and go, "Oh, nobody goes to gun shows." And did you go to the gun show? Well, no, because I don't go to gun shows. Well, so nobody goes to rallies because nobody goes to rallies. Well, if nobody's going to rallies, make them fun. I didn't see slip and slide at a rally recently. Is there like a car show at a rally? Maybe bring in a bunch of motorcycles or some horses or a petting zoo or something. Like, is there some rule that rallies got to be boring and a bunch of Gadsden flags?
Well, I think that a rally is the ultimate outside of the social media. It's the ultimate echo chamber because typically, not saying there won't be protesters there, whatever you're doing, but ultimately the vast majority of people that show up for a rally are someone that's there to supporting whatever cause that it is. So yeah, and I love what you said up there earlier, G, about
rallies with 300 people. Get the people who rallied together and promoted a rally for 300 people. It makes them hard, and then they get rallies with 3,000 people going. Right? I mean,
exactly.
In what universe do you throw out flyers and you have to like put up bouncers to keep people out of your event? Like every single thing in our society revolves around having to promote and get people to do something. I mean, why would this be any different?
Yeah, and I love what you said earlier in the chat. You were talking to someone about rallies, and you said when you have multiple rallies and much effort to get people there, get discouraged and move away. But if you want to get discouraged that no one shows up to a rally once, get back in there and work. And whether there's one person that shows up or 300,000 people that show up to a specific rally, I think in general, get back in there and work and find out what you did right and replicate that for the next one, but then find out what you didn't do right and maybe make those changes. And I think that's what we're talking about also is you have to learn from mistakes. You have to learn from things that you did. You have to learn from history. History is what shapes the future. And so I think that if you do that, then the next rally, if you had 30 people show up, that maybe you have 100 people show up to the next one. Like you said, you get out there and you promote it more, or you get other people involved instead of doing it as a 1 or 2 person organization. Hey, I'm going to throw away my ego and I'm going to ask for help. I'm going to bring in 20 more people that are willing to help, that might bring different ideas. That's where it comes down to is I think it's dropping egos and allowing more people to be involved, because the more people that get involved, then they have their circles and the spider webs of people that they talk to, that now you're spreading this, whether it's a news story or a rally or whatever is in our community or in general in society. If you drop your ego with the door and you allow someone to help and allow someone inside your world that could help you in whatever you're doing, that's a good thing. It's a good thing because you're not having to rely on just yourself. You have someone to lean on. God knows that everyone in this room, we talk a lot. Clover and I talk damn near every day, and there are times when I'm not feeling good or he's not feeling good, or I'm pissed off and he's pissed off, or we've got things in our lives that are going crazy. It's nice to know there's someone there to help or to be there to talk if you need someone. So if you're out there and you're worried about something going wrong, whether it's a rally, whether it's this, or whether just in general, you're talking about people that are just alone in life. You're not alone, guys. There are people out there that are willing to talk to you and help you if you ask. So I got off another tangent, way off topic again. But I do want to talk a little bit about trying to get back on track a little bit is this. And I want to bring Clover in on this and ask you this. G, did you have something you want to say?
If we're getting back to influencers, it'll probably throw you off at a tangent or whatever. But I think a lot of people think because of YouTube, I hate YouTube because it's so stupid. It's only one of many platforms we have or have had or will have. And it's just another way that we can use these electronic switches to talk to each other across all kinds of boundaries and distance. But we always think about individuals because YouTube became, whatever reason, YouTube emulated TV shows and celebrity. It could have just as easily emulated at the time Remember back then there was the robot wars, and they were trying to come up with automated vehicles. So there would be like teams of nerds that would get together and accomplish goals with each other and compete. Imagine if YouTube would have become that way, and we would have teams. If we would have, task forces centric YouTube, I would have a different opinion of YouTube. But instead, it went after this celebrity model where flash and sizzle, because marketers came along and exploited those aspects of it. Anyway, we think of influencers as individuals, and that's fine because they're often labeled as that. But we as a community are an influencer, and I'm going to continue to encourage people to value your voice. You have a little thing in your pocket that's more powerful than when the space shuttle, when it went up, is certainly more powerful than the first vehicles that got into space. You can use that to take photographs that are incredible. You can hold your phone down at your feet or your knees. You can hold it up in the air and get camera angles that mimic what a movie can do. You can learn to use that thing so quickly. You can use it with one hand, turn it on and off, and pause the video and edit as you're recording. It is so easy. Once you've played with it for a little bit, it's literally designed for little kids to use it and master. You can take that, and with a couple of clicks of your button, if you're watching this video on YouTube or GunStreamer or GunTube or one of the other platforms that don't care about our gun rights, then you can click, and that's up there, and it's published for people to participate in. And then once you've created content, you get comments from people, and you create a community based on your content that you've decided to put up there. That's the power. And those little pockets, those communities that assemble and happen organically, that influences. And if you don't believe me, think about SHOT Show. I love this example. In SHOT Show in 2005, the first time I walked in the door with my camera, my digital camera, they about pooped themselves. They didn't understand what a digital camera was. They didn't understand that I could get images onto the internet in hours, days back then, let alone months that it would take for the regular photographers. And now they literally understand video and YouTube to the point where they have sections of their booths, which cost them many tens of thousands of dollars to have that real estate. They devote a portion of that, probably $5,000, $7,000 worth of their booth is devoted to having a place for YouTubers to walk up and interface with them on the internet on this YouTube platform. That's influence that we've had over our industry and over society. Remember that, and that is what I'm passionate about. All the individuals who want to take credit as being influencers, like I said before. Next.
Yep, beautifully said. Yeah, and I love that the fact that you said that there's not one person that's above. You didn't say this, but I'm saying, I'm paraphrasing. There's not one person that's above anybody else, but as a community and as a group of people, you can influence an entire community, and that is great. You can influence an industry, which is crazy. Like you said, when you started out in 2005, you were probably almost damn near run out of SHOT Show for taking pictures, and now there are companies that will literally pay people to come to their booths to shoot videos and take pictures. So it's amazing what's happening.
There are people that brag about that they've been paid to be in a hotel room that one night costs more than my entire week lodging in SHOT Show. They're getting paid that much to be there with, and they consider themselves influencers with a number far lower than what many people would consider a level needed to be an influencer.
I understand. We'll talk. Yeah. I do want to kind of maybe have some fun with this one. I think we've kind of Carrie, Glover on this specific.
What the hell is that going on in the background?
Huh?
Some weird fucking noise. I don't know what was going on. Anyway, you guys didn't hear that?
No, it's on you.
I don't know what that was all about.
As far as the influencer side of things, Clover, Carrie, do you have anything that you want to kind of touch on before I like to move on and talk about some fun stuff so we don't get too depressed? But is there anything you guys want to touch on, or are you guys ready to move on?
Well, I don't know if you really want me to address that issue here. I'd like to take.
We're talking influencer stuff right now. Yeah. Influencer stuff. Yeah.
Well, this isn't just influencer specific, but I need you guys to understand that this is the power of an influencer. Okay. This is the power of influencers. Actually, this does actually relate to this. We had a situation where this guy became Instagram famous in 12 hours. Like, I wouldn't even say overnight. It was less than that. his wife, who is at this point, we don't know everything. We do know that she was estranged, and there was a domestic violence, a no contact order put in place. This is an opportunity that I would have liked to have seen influencers take, but I want you to understand the power of an influencer. Okay, this man. So I want to get this point across, and the quicker I'm trying to do it, the harder it's getting. He manipulated all of these people to think that he was under siege with a red flag law, because domestic violence abusers are narcissists, and they are masters at making people think that it is their fault. He manipulated hundreds of thousands of people to believe that he was the victim. And when I woke up the next morning and had all kinds of people, including influencers with millions of followers, texting me saying, well, how come she just isn't coming out publicly and telling everybody so that we can just get over this and move on? Okay. So that's, first of all, that's victim blaming. Okay. Second,
well, let's remember also, and I don't know if you're going to touch on this, but it's not just that, but I believe he's got a history of some mental illness.
He could.
So he might be delusional to a certain extent also.
He could. I don't know. And that, but it doesn't, it's irrelevant.
It doesn't matter, but yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And here's why. Because when, first of all, it's none of your goddamn business whether she comes out or not. Leave her alone, first and foremost. And it's not her responsibility to validate or deny or to, any of this conversation. But what I need you guys to understand is that this woman became a victim on the backside of a red flag law, because this is an exact reason why women don't come forward and why they're scared, because now she is sitting there watching this man who abused her come forward, be giving all of this sympathy, right? And she's sitting there going, oh God, now all these people believe him. Nobody's ever going to believe me. Right? When a few of those influencers could have taken that moment afterward and said, look, if this is in fact the case, if alleged, right? I mean, we've got to qualify that, but they had a moment that they could have seized to provide some education and some insight into a topic that is very relevant in the gun community, because gun grabbers use domestic violence as that's one of the biggest reasons they use to take guns, right? They could have turned that into a moment, like G was talking about, like a teaching moment, and said, look, here's why we shouldn't be having this conversation around her. And it wasn't done. But I hope that all of you take away from this conversation the fact that this is how manipulative that these people can be, that this guy manipulated hundreds of thousands of people, right? Whether he believed it or not, because narcissists believe that they're right? I mean, so the delusion thing, narcissists usually are delusional. So, but when you're watching these sort of influence things, it's like people were saying, wait 24 hours, kind of watch what's going on, because that's what happened here. Is this guy, now that being said, he is an American, and he is owed his due process. End of story. He is owed his due process. And I still stand by my statement when I posted that said, if you are there, you need to support this man. He's a veteran, right? So at the very least, if he was having some sort of mental health breakdown, we needed to be there to support him for that reason, if nothing else, right? I'm not a boogaloo, whatever. That's whatever. And none of y'all going to do that shit anyway. But I just wanted to take that moment to say that this was an opportunity that influencers could have used to their advantage to be a powerful teaching moment for how manipulative that this situation can be, and how everybody fell into it because of those influencers. And they could have come out looking really well for themselves, number one, because there is, for a lot of them, there was a self-serving component to that, damage control or whatever. And they really could have done that.
There always is. Yeah,
absolutely. And they could have taken that moment and used it and actually given an education moment with that, and still saved face, probably even better, with more dignity than some of them did. Probably. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to say that, because I'm literally being shut down around the gun community.
You know that you've got a microphone and a free avenue to talk here anytime you want. So
I appreciate that. That's because you're scared of me, just so you know. I'm kidding. So that's because you're scared of me. I'm just being a jerk.
I'm not scared of many people in this world. My wife may be one.
I'd be care to your wife too.
I want to touch on
Been
one
there.
thing real quick. Hold on, G. I'll come back to you in a second. But I want to touch on one thing you said, Carrie, real quick. And I'm not just honing in on this one statement, but I do want to say, and Clover and I were talking a little bit about this last night, and he was worried that he was going to piss me off when he mentioned something about veterans. And I want to say this real quick. Just because you're a fucking veteran doesn't give you a free pass.
That's right.
You can hold yourself as a higher standard. If you want respect because you're a veteran, then go fucking earn the respect because you're a veteran. Just because you served. I know a lot of shitbags in this world that are veterans. Not every single veteran's a good person. If you're a veteran, then you should hold yourself to a higher standard. That's my soapbox. Sorry, go ahead, G.
No, and I agree with you on that. I absolutely agree with you. And that's like I said, if this was a mental issue with him as a veteran, he should be, but I can tell you also, like, that's a whole other rabbit hole that we can go down. But
That's all.
Veterans can get away with a lot of shit with DV, and they should be held to a higher standard. So
G, sorry about that. Didn't mean to gizzard you.
sorry.
I should say I ghosted you. Gizzard you got skipped. Ghost just gets you
throw somebody like 12 questions and then go.
All right, go ahead.
So I was just going to say, Gary, that I've been doing this for a while, and just keep in mind, you've only been doing this since about a year now, really full throttle. And that's the only time that DV or whatever, see, now I'm cool and hip, but that was never a perspective that has ever really been brought up, other than maybe like in passing in an article, but certainly not with an advocate or, with a consistent voice. So, I mean, I'm not giving anybody a pass or nothing, but thanks for being here, whatever. But then don't also, it's not like he had this whole selection of stuff, a big menu to choose from. He decided not to. It's probably just some dink who's never even thought of it before, or at least I'm not talking about the dude, but the people who, whatever, like, without re-saying everything you just said, the people that didn't use that as an opportunity where they could have. Yeah. And now they're at least aware of it.
Which also blows my mind, just a side tangent of that to validate his thing. I'm the first person that's talked about this. And I see that I'm still out there. There's several people out there that are advocating as domestic violence survivors in the gun community. I don't know, maybe I just have the biggest mouth. I don't know. Some of them are more concerned about using it to make money in their stores and shopping. And I'm not judging that, and that's fine. Good on you, girl. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? I'm like a gun. It's like gun bunnies, right?
You do you, Scotty P.
Yeah, but there are some other voices that are out there. But what is appalling is that there are, I mean, in general, the influencers don't use this as an opportunity to advocate, which again can really advance a movement that we need on this side, because we as survivors are one of the biggest gun control toys, right? We're one of the biggest pawns that they use, and it blows my mind that nobody wants to take an opportunity to bring us forward with that. So,
did Clover drop out?
Probably internet. He said it was on mobile.
No.
Yeah, he'll come back in. Because I was getting ready to go to him, because I know that he was biting at the bit to talk. So there he is. Let's bring him back in, because I was getting ready to Clover. I was getting ready to go to, because I know that you had a couple of comments you want to bring up. So go ahead. You have the floor, man.
I didn't have anything. I covered what I wanted to.
Oh, I saw your microphone.
Well, then let me throw out there. I've seen the thing where it's like, if you want to think a veteran be the kind of citizen or some shit, then I think it's the same way. If you want to act like you're a veteran and have people give you respect because of that, then be that kind of veteran, or like you guys, basically just what you guys said in a different way. But I don't know. I agree with you that, like, if you're a teacher, good. If you're a cop, great. If you're a fireman, awesome. If you're a veteran, cool. But you know what? You're more than just whatever you got, whatever clothes you're wearing, or whatever job you took.
That's right. No, you're right. And that's can bring it back full circle to where my thought is the influencer thing. If you're going to be an influencer, once again, you can't tell people that you're an influencer. You can't force them to think and believe that you as an influencer. You're only an influencer if the people that watch or listen to you use you to influence their lives, whether it's decisions or a way of life or just opening your minds to a different thought process. You're only an influencer if the receiving person opens their door to what you're saying. So don't take yourself too seriously. Earn their respect. If you're out there, I tell people all the time, please turn your cameras on. We need as many people out here in the 2A community, because guys, listen, I'm going to think it's a way big number, but I said 1 to 2% of YouTube is the gun community. It's probably less than 1%. Okay, so we're not a community that, in the big scheme of things on YouTube and the social media realm, we're not this big, huge conglomerate that needs to be reckoned with. But the more people we can get turning cameras on, it doesn't matter how quality your content is. If you're being real, you're being honest, you're giving your opinion, and you're not spreading false and dangerous topics and news, then you're a valuable part of this community. And the more people we can get on social media to bring an honest perspective to the masses, the more our little small group grows, and then we do become a force to be reckoned with. And it's like G says, over time, we have influenced and changed the industry as far as SHOT Show goes. Imagine if we could get as many people out there that we can to at least have a discussion on guns in a civil manner, whether you agree with us or not. If we could influence society to at least be open to a civil conversation and not be far left or far right, because you know what, guys, no offense, but the far right staunch gun owner is just as dangerous as the gun grabber.
Louder, please, Trey. Louder, please. Say that again.
Okay.
Can you say that for the people in the back, please? Louder.
Right. So if we can all come out and do our part, and then our group can start influencing society, and that's what it's all about. We can talk about gun reviews. We can talk about what's the greatest concealed carry handgun ever. We can talk about domestic violence. We can talk about whatever you want, but ultimately it's about the conversation. And the more people that are interested in having that conversation, the bigger and better our community gets. Now I want to kind of transition here. We do have a question out there that's crazy ass.
Thank you for coming to Trey Talk.
Related. So we're going to have fun with this one.
To his Trey Talk.
Yeah, right. So we're going to have fun with this one. I got a text. They didn't leave who it was, but it's okay. It says, if you are looking to be a new gun owner and have never shot a handgun before, or looking to buy a new rifle, how do you know who to trust on the internet when looking at reviews? Now, Carrie, you're probably the newest of the gun owners in this crew, so why don't you take first shot at this?
Don't trust a goddamn one of them. Not a single one of them.
That's pretty good.
Because everybody, poor Trey, he's always like, this always seems like a real, this is why he only has me on every few months, because he's like, he forgets, right? He's like, it'll be a good idea to have Carrie on. Ah, shit.
No, I had to get my monetization back before I bring you on. Well, because I know it's going to be
Tell me
gone.
what my rating is. Just tell me what my rating is, and I'll be fine. I know. Just tell me what my rating is. So here's the thing. Everybody has their personal. A gun is a very, very, very personal purchase. Okay. Mm-hmm. What works for me is not going to work for Trey. Trey prefers those little Sky 22s. Okay, because he's secure enough in his manhood that he doesn't mind carrying a Tiffany blue 22.
I wouldn't mind carrying it.
Yeah, I don't know. It would match your shirt. Yeah. So all kidding aside, and me busting these guys' chops. Here's the thing. Someone who's new to guns needs to go out and shoot. If you're fortunate enough, I am not fortunate enough to live near a range where I can go rent them. I highly recommend that you do not go with your spouse if possible. You may be one of those few lucky people who can. I was, but that being said, where I'm at now with my knowledge, there's no way I'd go with him, right? Because I know just enough to be dangerous, and he'd irritate me. So I would need to go with somebody I don't know. But when you go with your spouse, especially ladies, that can tend to be a challenge. Or if you are a male who's new, because I've had this happen, and your wife is an instructor, that actually happens, believe it or not. Try to find somebody who fits your personality type in how you would learn. Firearms Training Central is great for that, because you go on there and it's almost like an Angie's List kind of way of referral through people that have used instructors, so you can get an idea of the different personality types and the way that they teach. Yeah, Tony. Yeah, you talking about? Yeah, Tony's amazing. So, but but to actually say that there's a blanketed. I mean, I would love to tell you my first gun is still the one that I go to 99% of the time for everyday carry, and that's a SIG 238, right? It's a 380. I wear more fitted clothes. She's easier to hide, and so there's many factors, not just how it shoots, that the reason I choose to carry that. That being said, my girlfriend she started straight out with a 45 because it just fit her hand better. So everybody really, I think if you go to an influencer, you need to just find one. VSO Gun Channels is great for something like this because that dude is like all about the science behind stuff. I mean, he might be a little extreme for some because he like goes in he breaks stuff, right? But yeah, my point is that he is literally there to test the equipment. He's not there to give his opinion and this is my recommendation. This is my, you know what I mean? That's my point. If you can really find someone, and I think it would be really hard to do. I think it's a little bit hard, right? Because we all have our preferences and we're all going to pull that way. But if you were in fact to find someone on the internet, and these boys here will know who to go to probably about that. But honestly, any good instructor or any good gun store is never going to tell you when you first walk in the door that you need to start with this. The first thing they should ask you is, how are you going to be carrying it? What are you going to be doing with it? Is this for every day? Is it for home defense? There is a list of questions that they should be asking you before they show you anything. And so I would never trust anybody online to give you any advice on where to go.
I think there's a lot to be said about that. For me personally, I'll say, and I'll come to Clover and G on this also, but for me, it's one of those things where if you're relying on a person or two or three people to help you decide if you want this gun, then you probably don't want the gun. You probably don't. If you really want a gun, you don't need anyone to tell you that it's a good gun. You can find that on your own. Now, if you're out there and you're trying to decide between two guns, and you don't have money for both of them, because I know what G's going to say, buy both of them, and I agree. But if you don't have the money for both of them, and you're looking for someone to sit there and say, this versus this versus this, then if you're going to rely on someone on YouTube to help you out, then you have to understand that they're giving their opinion. And if you have a set of criteria that you're looking to go with to decide on what gun, then try to find a YouTuber that is going to give you that criteria. I would like to think that people would listen to my videos and say, hey, I get comments, emails all the time. Hey, thanks for the video. I bought the gun because of this video. And I'll say, let me know how you like it. And I'll always get back, hey, great gun. Thanks again. That makes me feel good. But I'm assuming that you wanted to buy that gun first, or you wouldn't be doing research on said gun to figure out if you want to buy it. So if you want to buy it, and then go do your own research and all that. But I'll say this, as far as me, and I'm not trying to push him. I'm not trying to say that he is awesome. I personally, if I'm looking to find out information on a firearm that I don't have all the information of that I want to, because I get picky sometimes about specific things before I buy a firearm, my go-to is Such. And I understand you might have 45 minutes to watch one of his videos because he's going to take forever. But Such, in my opinion, does a great job explaining the very fine details, and he explains details typically that are important to me. Now, Clover might have different details that he finds important, but for me, I watch Such, and everyone has their own kind of go-to. But if you're relying on an influencer or a creator to tell you to go buy a firearm, then you probably don't want that firearm to begin with, because I shouldn't have to tell you to go buy it. Now, Clover, I want to come to you and answer the question, what do you look for, or do you utilize people online to help you decide on firearms?
To an extent. I mean, sometimes, yeah. But not just firearms, but other things, appliances and tools and other things as well. It's just something we do, right? Once upon a time, we picked up JD Power and Associates, and then Car and Driver and things like that. So it's normal. I will agree with you that for the most part, people, you have to go to YouTube, you have to get online, you have to go to the Googles, you have to type in some type of search data. And typically, if you've gone that far, there's some confirmation bias there. You've made your mind up. You just want to feel better about making your mind up, right? That being said, I don't think there's one creator, spot, influencer, or whatever you want to call it, to go to. I think everybody needs to seek out and search and look at multiple avenues. And there's a reason for that. And you know, I don't nail down any one person specifically, but I'll give you an idea if you're watching that video or whatever, or reading that review, that some things to look for and that are, to me, that are helpful. And I try to do my stuff the same way, is I try to point out what things are useful for, certain features that are useful in certain situations, and certain features that are maybe a hindrance in certain situations, right? I try, you know, I look for, this is one thing that I look for when I'm going through stuff, and I also try to do myself, is I want it to be some type of review that is applicable across multiple types of firearm owners, not just myself, not just, ooh, I love this gun, it fits my hand great. It was, well, okay, why does it fit my hand great? It fits my hand great because I have small hands. It fits my hand great because of, you know, it's got a deep cut in the back strap, you know, and I get a lower 4-axis, and, you know, going into some of, like you're talking about, some of those finer details that when people look at it, they're getting information that may be specific to them, and only they can identify that, right? But it may be specific to them, and then that could potentially, like I said, I think a confirmation bias exists anyway, but that would at least make them feel better about that purchase and potentially put them in something that is indeed a better fit for them.
Yeah, and I want to bring up something that Liv out there at Live for Freedom out there says that when he's interested about a gun, he watches videos to see what's wrong with them. And that's true, because, you know, you and I both, we're doing a review. I'm looking for something wrong. And it might be something as small as, like you said before in a video, a zipper, or the trigger might be a little grainy for the first 100 pulls, or, you know, it could be something very, very small. It doesn't feel great in the hand. Whatever it is, you're going to try to find something, even though you absolutely love this product, this gun, or whatever it is. I'm always going to try to find something negative about it, because, like you said before, what I think is very circumstantial about this being a problem, that might be the one thing that turns off a viewer and said, you know what? That's what I'm looking for. I hate zippers in that location. Thanks for telling me that, because now I can't go buy them because I have an allergic reaction to, or whatever it is. There's so many different things, but yeah, finding something wrong in videos is also helping the company, but it's also helping the viewer as well. Brian Quick out there says, new gun consumer need to do an aggregate of information about potential firearms. This includes video review, take with a grain of salt, rent them, and find someone you trust that owns them. Absolutely. If you really want to find out whether you like a firearm or not, go shoot it. Before you buy it, go to a range, go to a gun shop that has a range attached, that have got it, that allows you to shoot it. Go shoot it. It's very, very simple. Let you do your own conclusions by
Yeah, Brian, I said that. Keep up.
What? Okay.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I said that. That's like, go rent them. I said that. But thanks, Brian, for mansplaining that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, there you go. G, I want to bring you in, and Clover is, well, I don't know what the hell's doing. Clover's doing. He might be back at his home computer now. I don't know. Anyways, I want to bring you in and ask you this. Do you watch videos on guns that you're going to possibly purchase, or if you're new to this, how much should someone take the consideration of gun review videos?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that while y'all were answering. I figured you were just going to skip me. So I don't even remember the last time I bought a gun, probably 2012. And I certainly wasn't buying a gun to carry. I made all those decisions in like 2006. So I was just thinking about this. You know, I'm old and I grew up. I literally had a gun when I was born. I cannot remember ever a time without having guns. You know, like on the weekends we'd go shooting, and all the different things you do, competition, or I guess back then it was just called going skeet shooting, or going to a turkey match or something. Like, guns have just always been around. And then you go to the Army, you experience guns in a different way. So I've shot all kinds of stuff that our uncle gave us to play with. And then you get out, and then the internet happens, and then all of a sudden people are interested in guns on the internet. And I meet people like Steve Fisher, who was out there before, gives me all kinds of access to cool stuff. I've been into the vault at Battlefield Vegas. I've been into personal places, people's own collections that make the Battlefield Vegas look like a little hobby collection. So, I mean, I've lost interest in playing with new guns like a long time ago. And I just say that to preface that, I mean, I've been around since there was no internet, and then there was no guns on the internet. And then I helped participate in the first gun reviews on the internet for sure, just because they didn't exist, but with no inclination to sell them to anybody, just to explain what a difference between a striker fire and a double action, single action are. And then later, to clarify maybe a position I had versus Yankee on, why double action, single action is a stupid type of gun to carry around when there's striker fire options available today. Except for doing videos to explain that kind of stuff, I got out of the review game in like 12 or 9 or something. And I've never really been paid to make a gun review. So I feel sorry for people that are jumping into it. I honestly have no way to deal. I can't put myself in those shoes. I have a different life experience. And if you were coming into guns and the internet today, I think that that's something that people shouldn't take for granted, and some people should focus. I have personally no interest in that, so I'm not going to focus on it. My interest is in the history of our Second Amendment and putting that down so that we know what it was, right? But I think that it's valuable for somebody, if someone wants to do a project, to take a look at a snapshot of what it's like today to be a brand new gun owner, because how the hell could I ever have anything in common with that person? Like, I have so many assumptions, and I can't even imagine what it's like to not know certain things. I mean, I've never not known certain things. So to come in with questions about stuff, I don't even know how to do it. So I think there's value if you are an unknowledgeable, like haven't learned stuff yet, do something as a content creator to explain to content creators, because we're coming from all different levels. What is it you're looking for? I guess since Carrie's raising her hand over there, I'll bring up the women thing. I constantly hear forever. I've been doing the online stuff, paying attention to stuff, recording stuff, archiving stuff online since 5. So, I've been around for a couple of years, and constantly ladies come into a gun shop, ladies come to the internet, ladies come into a conversation and go, "You're doing it wrong." Like, all right, I can acknowledge that, but how about you tell us how to do it right, so that we just don't always hear what's wrong all the damn time. So as a new gun owner, that's an awesome question, but why don't you start telling us what you're looking for as a new gun owner? I mean, I'm never going to address it personally. I'll just tell you, I don't look forward to that from me. I'm long past that. I'll tell you all about how John Lott got into it and how Carrie got into this and their influence on the whole big thing, so that we become stronger as a team. But there's certainly room for somebody to go in and focus on what it's like to be a brand new kid today and how you experience guns. That's interesting. I'd watch those videos. I'm just not going to make.
I want to make sure before Clover, I want to give him a moment if he has something to say, because I want to address that.
Clover keeps taking breaks. Don't give him any breaks.
Yeah,
Clover, are you going to the bathroom?
Clover wants to do as little as he can to get his.
I want to hit on the comment you put on the screen. You put that up there, and that was kind of an aha, because something I never really thought about, and that was whoever it was that said, yeah, he gets some. Has got some and ended up not liking them, and they make good trade material.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing with that. That gets you out in the community. That gets you familiar with your laws and procedures for being able to do private transactions, however they may be done in your state. So there's a lot of experience, and there's a lot of networking within the community, and a lot of fun that can be had by not getting the right one and figuring that out, and then turning around and having to swap or trade or sell and buy something else. So it's all life experience, right?
And I think that's all that part of that knowledge journey, right? And that's a good thing. I mean, I realize this. I'm lucky enough that I am in a financial position that I can afford to just buy a gun and then trade it, or what I do is sometimes I'll I'm looking at turning around and donating them for raffle, for my organization. So I am in that position. Fortunately, that being said, I realize, like somebody said, I can't afford to do that. And that's where those renting things or borrowing are good. But yeah, I love the idea because that concept forces you into the community. And Clover, I love that. I think that's awesome. And to address what G was saying about the, to be young. I mean, I'm, like he said, I remember shooting my grandfather's rifles and revolver and shotguns and like he had an old pre-World War II.
All the fudge
revolver.
shit, huh, Clover?
Huh?
Shotguns, revolvers, and bolt actions. That's some fudge shit right there, right?
Well, and we had some
Fud
automatic
laugh,
rifles.
baby.
Certainly no. My grandfather would have been a FUD. My grandfather was buried in his cowboy boots with his hat on his chest. Like Clover, I'm gonna find some pictures of my grandfather. You're gonna be like, oh my God, this man would have been my hero.
Yeah,
Like,
post those on the Flood Life channel.
he was straight up run out of Texas for some shady dealings and a questionable revolver.
Texas over some shady dealings. That's some shady shit right there.
I'm telling you, like there may or may not have been like my aunt wants this gun out, this one particular revolver out of the house because she's worried that it could have potentially been used in some nefarious. Like I said, don't worry, there doesn't have a serial number on it. She's like, what are you talking about? She's all freaking out. Yeah, so that's a whole. I'll tell you all about that.
Good.
I'll tell you all about that later. But so to address that, what G said, because he had some really good points. And as somebody, so I did that, right? And this was many years ago. But I had never had a semi-automatic pistol in my hand until, a year or so before I jumped into this world, right? Because I started learning about that and I had no idea what I was doing when I walked in the door. So on some component, it's really difficult for us to be able to go in and say, this is what we want because we don't know. So I actually, and you guys know this, I actually wrote an entire program for gun stores to be able to walk people through this, to get the answers they need from the consumer walking in the door. But, so that they can guide them in that, so that the consumer can tell that person behind the counter, this is what I need, but they don't know how to ask. So, and that's a whole, it's actually, interestingly enough, a sales technique that is completely lost upon the gun industry. And I wrote a whole program about this. So this is something that is a big deal because we don't know. And the world, even some technologies, I mean, some stuff has stayed the same, certain things, right? Revolver technology doesn't change so much. There's a lot of it. And for the most part, the basics of a semi-automatic pistol don't change, but there's little things that do and tweaks and stuff. And it's learning all of those little things that can get really, really overwhelming for people that are new in the gun world and trying to understand that and navigate it. And then, yes, as much as I hate to say it, gender does play a role in how we're approached and how we address buying them and stuff. So it's not an easy, there's no real easy answer, I think, for it. I don't think that necessarily the internet should be your first go-to unless you're just literally wanting to learn, this is what a revolver looks like. This is what, a 1911 is. Like, I think for that, it would be a good thing. And, he'd mentioned, somebody put videos out there that are new. I did that. I've got videos on my thing, and I swear to God, if I see any of you guys show up over there and saying some nasty shit, I will publicly shame you, because I actually had to pull one of the videos down because people were so hateful. And it didn't offend me. Like, I don't get offended easily. Like, you can call me that word that I'm not going to use because I don't want to get Trey kicked off. But I mean,
we haven't said already is not going to happen, so it's all good.
The C word is one of my favorite words. I love that word. However, I realize that that's not everybody's word. So I was called that. I was called all kinds of things. Well, the whole point of those videos was literally a mom with a gun, right? Not a gun person. And I went out in the desert with Prize Gunner, and very controlled environment. He's an NRI pistol rifle instructor, and he actually instructs instructors, right? Whatever that's called. And so this is like, it was a very controlled environment. And he just let me go to be able to understand it and I didn't know the language. I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know. And it was me as a mother talking to other women that have never put a gun in their hand and why this one might be a good idea for them to try and why this one they may be uncomfortable with. And it was literally things like, if you have long nails, ladies, this might not be a good gun for you, because I'm telling you right now, that's what's needed right now, because everybody on YouTube even these are good tips for gun owners. Well-armed woman is just as guilty for this. And I know that their intention is good, but they're literally still talking to people that are new in the gun industry. And some of the language and stuff that they use is still that. Well, I'm telling you, I own a day spa. I work with these women who come to me every day saying, I think I might try a gun. They're not going to walk in the store because they don't know what like you can see from like the first video I do to like the third one when I learned what a dovetail was, what stippling is. And
what
like
that?
A dovetail, beaver tail, whatever, right? So
What's that?
Whatever.
I have no idea what that. I'm just joking. I'm just messing.
Yeah,
with
but you know what I'm saying? So it's,
I know
but
what
my
you're saying.
point is that I'm learning this journey and I still don't know it all. I can't walk into a gun store and tell you, certain ones I've gotten that have some pretty identifying marks, but I can't walk in and tell you this gun from that gun anymore or yet, And
I'll tell you what, for me personally, you come about semi-automatic handguns and some AR platform stuff. I learned something very, very quickly about 2 weeks ago. Is for the first time that I've been going Wanamaker for a while, but for the first time I actually got to enjoy the show. And I went looking for stuff. And I went walking around with Clover Saturday afternoon for about an hour and a half or so. And I learned really quickly that I don't know shit about firearms. He's walking down these aisles and can just look over in a crowd of 20,000 people, see someone laying on there. Holy shit, that's a 1937, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? So I learned very quickly that you give me some modern stuff and, last 10, 20 years stuff, I could probably hold my own. But man, if you guys are talking about some old shit, Clover's the man. He can recognize
he's a FUD, man.
Bigger than shit. He's a FUD and a half. Yeah. Anybody else have anything you want to touch on before we start kind of closing? What's up? Cass is out there. So what's up? Star Snoop Dogg.
I'm waving at her. Finally, another girl with me in here.
Right.
Now that's somebody that can tell you what a gun is. That girl can run a gun.
She can.
There.
I bought her first sling. So
Aww.
I bought her first AR. I went and bought her a sling so she wouldn't have to walk around carrying the AR around Wanamaker. So let's go.
That screaming kick-ass deal she got on that AR. Psh, whatever.
Don't even get me started.
It's totally because you're a girl. That's okay.
It's okay. I would exploit it too if I could.
I would use. Are you kidding me? That's what that's women don't get it, man. Like, stop trying to bash the patriarchy. Your biggest power is these Betty and Veronica.
And I want you to kind of go and tell people that might not be familiar with your projects where they can find you on social media as an influencer or whatever, but tell people what you're doing and where they can find you.
I don't know that I wouldn't call myself an influencer. I'm more of a shit talker. But I do like to try to keep people aware of what's going on. I'm very much a constitutionalist, so I talk a lot about that. And like my big thing right now is getting people to understand that your focus shouldn't be at the federal level with gun laws right now. Your focus needs to be the federal government right now is using the 10th Amendment against you. If you don't know what it is, nobody tell them, because I want you to go do your homework and figure out what it is. And then he wanted to tell you. Yeah, no, they need to learn. There's an app. There's literally an app for it. It's free. Get it on your phone. But they're using that against you right now because we have a split Congress and they're not going to pass it. I don't see any federal laws, as much as I don't like what's going on and I am concerned about it. And if I get
the federal law won't be passed is exactly why you need to go find out what the 10th Amendment is. Just saying.
Exactly. Thank you, my friend. Yeah. So, but in the States, man, I'm telling you, like, that's what's happening. So what'll happen is they'll get all these laws passed in the States, right? Because if you notice, like, this state will say, well, we're modeling this law after Vermont, after the different states. Well, yeah, because once they get so many, then the federal government can say, well, we have a standard that we seem to have a pattern, and then it gets easier to pass the law. And then they can start trying to pull the shit without like getting approval anyway. So you need to be paying attention to that. So that's kind of one of my big things I'm on right now, is trying to get people active in their own states and their own, literally that starts in your own city with your city councils and your school boards. That's literally where it starts. That being said, I just got a couple of huge partnerships I'm really excited to share. Brownells has partnered with me. And they've been right now. I'll get the photos out tomorrow, but they have given me a loophole spotting scope to raffle off to raise money for We the Female. And I've got a Trijicon, like I think it's like an RMR. See, I don't know what these are yet. I'm gonna learn what this is and this is going to be a long-term thing that we're looking at doing. So where they're going to be donating to me every couple months for me to be able to do raffles to support We the Female and the financials there. I did just connect with a victims violent crime victim support organization here in Washington State, where they do advocacy work for family members of murder victims. So these people being victims themselves. And they've partnered with me to come in and start doing community outreach to try to teach people how not to be victims to begin with. So that's a big one for me. That's a big one. And then FPC is coming. We'll be making a big announcement about FPC, and you guys can find me on Instagram, and my biggest platform's Instagram. Facebook's probably second. YouTube, I'll figure it out. I'll get there.
I always love having you on, and
thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh man, you're always welcome. Like I said, you've always got a spot. If you ever need a microphone, you've got one here. I'll be seeing you in less than 2 months now. So.
I know, and that's where we met. It's going to be our anniversary, Trey.
Weird. It's a year ago.
It is
in January that we met, and we met honestly, kind of out of about a chance. We were just hanging with Maj and Zeke and a couple other people were like,
my guy Zeke.
I don't know you. Who are you? And a friendship blossoms. So
yeah, absolutely. And you were, I think, so other than Cheryl interviewing me, right? But as far as podcasts and interviews go, you were my second. Polite Society podcast caught me first, but which was nice. But yeah, you were my second. You were one of my first, which just doesn't sound the same.
It just sounds so wrong. No, thanks for coming on, and we'll obviously go check her out and all that, and soon. G, you got anything going on that you want to talk about?
You can always go buy stuff at the store, but I think it was a cool topic, and again, influences in just individuals. It's a group effort. The people that follow, that use the internet as a window, you're using the internet. You're not just watching a television or listening to a radio or reading a newspaper anymore. You have back and forth influence. So you can, if you do just want to watch or I guess be programmed, then you can at least use the interactivity of the likes and the shares and that kind of thing, the comment fields to interact with the humans that are out there creating that content. But also, again, I'll encourage people that you are part of this whole thing. That's what the internet gives us the power to do, is communicate with each other. They gave us the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. We all know what the value of the Second Amendment is. That First Amendment, we always hear about the speech part, and some people have the balls to talk about the religion part, but we always overlook that freedom to assemble, that right to assemble. And it, again, isn't a right that they gave us. It's telling the government to hands off. You can't stop human beings from assembling. And the ultimate core reasons they wanted us to be able to have arms is just as important. They wanted us to assemble. There's reason for that. And I can tell you, I've been to a lot of places where people assemble. There's an energy and there's a invigoration. I don't know what to call it, but I don't know the words, but there's something that happens when human beings get together, and it allows people to collaborate and to network. But just being there and getting together is important. And this whole thing about influence isn't just individuals that you watch. It's about the influence that our community has on society. I've already mentioned examples of that, but our community is what keeps this world free. Individuals with firearms, lethal consequences for being evil, stop people from being casually evil. That creates a country that other countries live up to and put up signs and protests to be like. And those kind of goals are the reasons that they put a bunch of money and a bunch of effort into defeating these specific things. So influence is more than just a bunch of people who stand there. The people who want to exploit and stand in, on the accumulation of what happens in society when good people communicate, there's always going to be somebody who's willing to stand up. Some people are going to call them leaders. Other people are going to call them exploiters. Doesn't really fucking matter. Doesn't really matter. Influence is from both ends of that camera screen. And we have the power now to have both at our disposal through thanks to technology and Al Gore and logarithms.
And Al Gore's rhythms. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. And
how to tell if somebody's a decent influencer? If they shoot 9mm, goodbye.
Next. Yeah. then you're really not going to like one of the videos that I got coming out on Thanksgiving. Just saying.
You judgy bastard, you.
If they're
Oh.
metric, then move on. If they're metric, keep moving.
Shame on you.
Well, I do like, and I don't remember who it was, so forgive me. I can probably try to scroll up, but it's going to take me a while to scroll up. But someone was talking about they recommend 50 BMG to new shooters because it ruins every other gun from them point on in their lives. So yeah.
So
go get
I
it.
have a young man. He's the Triggered Millennials. His name is Mark, and he is a firearms instructor up in
That's
Pennsylvania.
kind of redundant, right? A triggered millennial.
The Triggered Millennial, yeah, Mark, and he's a firearms
Fire
instructor.
mark.
Say that again.
Is it fit and fire mark? Because
It is-
I would trigger his ass.
It is not fit and fire, Mark.
Yeah, no.
Fit and
He
fire.
was a
Mark.
millennial though. He's young enough to be a millennial. I think he's
not.
younger than that, isn't he?
No, he's not. He's like
How
40,
old is he?
43.
No,
42.
he's not. He looks.
He
No,
is.
he's not.
You know
Oh.
he's not. Look at that hairline. Oh, not that really matters. You could be 18 and have that hairline, I suppose. Yeah, no, he's like 43. He's
Oh,
up
shit.
there.
I
All right.
thought he was early 30s.
20-year-old son, 22,
He's just
23
in
year old son.
good shape, I guess. Anyways.
No, anyway, so he triggered millennials. He's a firearms instructor, and the first thing he does, so he'll take particularly women. He takes a lot of in their 20s and stuff out to shoot, and he's I think 26, and men, women, whatever.
Date,
but-
man.
Huh?
He's just looking for dates. Is all he's doing.
Yeah, nah, he don't need to look for dates. He's a pretty cute kid. But he what he does is he takes people out that have never had a gun in their hand, and the first thing he puts in their hand is usually something that shoots. And don't laugh at me, you guys, because I remember I'm new. But are they like a 308, like the bigger bullets, right? The rifles with that shoot bigger
Rifle,
caliber.
308, yeah. Yeah,
So he'll
sure.
put something like that in their hands, or even a 50 cal handgun in their hands first. And I said, and that doesn't scare me. He says, anything I hand them after that I'm going to tell them they're realistically going to carry for the day doesn't scare them anymore. And I thought, well, I thought it was a really cool way of doing. I'm like, good
No
on you.
doubt.
Yeah, I'm
No
impressed
doubt.
with that. I'm impressed. I don't know that it would work for everybody, but I mean, some women it might.
I think you kind of have to know who they are. I think you have to be able to read people pretty quickly and give them the largest caliber that you think they can handle without hurting themselves or putting the fear of God into them.
That's
if you think they can handle, and that's up to the individual instructor. And some instructors are very talented enough to
Right.
kind of read that. But yeah, I'm agreeing to that. I think you give them the largest caliber that you think they can handle without scaring them away from guns or hurting themselves. That's just me.
That's what she said.
Hey,
Yeah, and obviously he's
information has been given to me.
we're just saying. and obviously he's figured that out. It's a formula for him that he's good with. So yeah.
Clover, are you doing anything at all? Or are you just kind of on
Pooping.
vacation right now?
No, I'm not. Story on that. My youngest daughter at about 10, I think that, yeah, if you put something larger caliber or whatever into a new shooter's hands, I think they have to be ready for it and they have to be willing to do that. You understand, they understand what it is, even though they haven't experienced it. I don't think you definitely don't do it as a surprise or a funny or a goof, which you see a lot of stupid videos of crap like that. And the story that comes to mind that I had, and it speaks a lot to what Carrie was talking about with this guy, is my youngest daughter was probably 10, wanted to shoot the 12 gauge, wanted to shoot the 12 gauge, wanted to shoot the 12 gauge. And I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure? And I'm like, it's going to hurt. And I'm like, the cool thing is very few things ever again will hurt like that, but it's going to hurt. And she did it, and it bruised the crap out of her. We were scared that we were going to get CPS called on us or something, and she cried for a little bit. But you know what? That chick is not recoil sensitive to anything. After that, it was all downhill. It don't matter. She loves the 45-70. It just doesn't matter. So there is a benefit to it, but they really have to want to experience that. I wouldn't surprise them with anything. What I'm doing, clovertech.com, you'll find it all. And remember, once you go FUD, it's never a dud. Just saying.
Oh my God. Is this going to be a sticker? Is this going to be a sticker or a t-shirt? Because
It's going to be a patch, isn't it?
Next, we're going to hear a rap sung to the Super Bowl shuffle.
Oh no. Oh, speaking of that, by the way, I have my first patch and logo coming out.
Just saying.
I forgot. Yeah, forgot about that. It's pretty fucking great. Oh yeah. Oh, of course, absolutely. All you boys will get one. Yeah, yeah. It's pretty fat. You guys are gonna love it. You're gonna be. I know that G is gonna trade me one of those clip strip.
Well, she was a stripper clip.
I want a
She
stripper
saw it
clip.
on Whoever's wall and was fascinated by it.
It was this guy down
I
here.
don't even think I've got one on my stuff here. I think I might.
Mine's cute. She's great.
I've got one. If you can't find one, G, I can bring one to her to shot because I've got.
I'll show you what it'll look like, you guys, if you want to see it. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt that. I forgot about that. I'm excited. Here she is. Can you see it?
There's a little bit of a glare, but that looks pretty sweet.
There she is.
I like it.
Look at that hair. It's so that's they modeled it after me. So
yeah, because without the hair, I wouldn't figure out.
You wouldn't have figured it out if it was a boy or not, right? Yeah, with the big hair and the big boobs. Yeah. So that's my patch. It'll be out by SHOT Show.
Right on, right on. But as far as what we're doing, I got nothing. We're putting out some mediocre content, maybe doing some top 5, got some reviews out there, a crappy podcast. If you like crappy content and you want to feel better about yourself, go check us out. Go to tacticalproductions.com.
I heard you like to review 9mm.
What's that?
I heard you like to review 9mm.
I do like to review 9mm. I've got a video dropping on Thursday on Thanksgiving that might or may not have something to do with 9mm, but it's out there. We come out there Thursday. A podcast will be coming out this weekend as well over the weekend. This weekend is the holiday season begins. Thanksgiving is Thursday, so I would be remiss if I didn't mention thank you to everyone that has always watched everything that we do, listened to everything we do, supported, even given criticism, because criticism is not a bad thing either. It lets me know what I needed to get better at and calling me out on some stuff that I might be wrong about. I love that. So thank you to everyone out there that's been in any way, shape, or form been involved with the last almost 2.5, 3 years now of being involved in this crazy ass thing called social media. Especially, huh?
Tim's here.
Oh, hey, Tim. What's up, Tim? God, he's just talking about trouble. He comes in about 2 hours late, but welcome, Tim. We'll see you soon.
He comes in and it's like, I'm Brittany, bitch.
Yeah, he is.
I call him the Godfather. I call him the Godfather.
He walks in.
You need to know somebody. You need something done. You got to have some habit.
I know a guy, and my guy is Timothy Knight. Just say
totally Timmy. It's Timmy. Yeah, totally Timmy.
But I want to get back and say to my patrons. Last week there was a thank you patron day, and so but thank you to all my patrons. I want to welcome a new Patreon that came in late last night. 38 Super Partisan joined the Go Squad. So thank you, my friend. It was good seeing you, by the way, a few weeks ago at Wanamaker. But thank you for entrusting a little bit of your hard-earned money into what we're doing. So thank you to everyone out there that's always supported. If you're watching this in replay or listening to podcasts and you have comments or questions, please utilize the comment section either on the video or on the podcast itself. And we like to get questions. We like to get comments. We utilize some of those questions for later podcasts and to bring them on. And if they're for Carrie or Clover or G, I'll make sure that they get those questions as well. So, like I said, Thanksgiving is coming this Thursday. Black Friday is Friday, so be on the lookout. I already know that Academy and Bass Pro and some other, and especially Sportsman's Guide and Brownells, a lot of these companies and shops are having crazy ass Black Friday deals on ammo and guns and all that. So, if you're interested, talk about being a new gun owner. This is going to be the weekend that if you're looking to buy your first gun, you're going to get a pretty good deal. If you're looking to build your first AR or whatever, you're going to get some really good deals this weekend. But be careful Black Friday, especially if you're going to go to an actual store to shop for your family.
Hey, 2 things on Black Friday.
I want to carry, just say.
2 things on Black Friday. First of all, go over to clovertac.com because the November newsletter will release tomorrow. So jump over there, scroll down, sign up for the newsletter because there will be some Black Friday links and stuff in there. And second of all, is something that I've talked about for about a week now. My local gun shop on Saturday does this awesome like post Black Friday, big get together with sales and machine gun shoots and suppressor shoots and just all kind of dinner and lunch or whatever and all kinds of fun. So be dang sure that you check those local gun shops because a lot of those don't necessarily have the advertising budget to really put a lot of stuff out there, but they do have some pretty cool specials on Black Friday that they're running. So you get to hang out, support a local gun shop, and get a good deal on top of it.
And then you got Small Business Saturday, do the same.
That's basically what it is. The Saturday after, is when my gun shop does it. I forgot the name of it, so thank you, G.
Yeah, it is Small Business Saturday. Then you have Cyber Mondays and all that. But hell, most everything now,
Giving
Black
Tuesday.
Friday started November 1st, you know. What was that, G?
I think then there's Giving Tuesday. That's when you donate or something on Tuesday.
And then there's Take It Back Wednesday, maybe, or Return It Wednesday or something.
Buy Back Wednesday? What? What do you have?
What the hell are you talking about? All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. I hope everyone has a blessed Thanksgiving and a safe Black Friday and Small Business Saturday and Cyber Monday. We'll see you next Tuesday and with another podcast. But guys, like I said, man, just be with your family, love your family. I can tell you right now that family can be taken from you at any second, and you never want to regret the time that you had to spend with them. And so enjoy your family, love your family, tell them you love them, give them a kiss on the forehead, and don't be too manly out there. If you think you're too manly to tell your kids you love them or to give them a kiss or
cry.
Watch some sappy Disney movie. My favorite all-time movie in the history of the world is Lion King. So go fuck yourself if you think that's unmanly.
That's a badass movie, actually.
It is a badass movie. But yeah, tell your families that you love them and tell them on a everyday basis. And I always, it's weird. Every time I talk to my family on the phone or before they leave or I leave from somewhere, the last thing I ever say is I love you. And my daughter asked me one time, says, why do you always say that? I said, because in case something terrible happens, I want the last words that you ever hear from me is I love you.
Yep.
And I'm very serious about that. So
that's where our family is.
Have a great Thanksgiving. And thanks again for always watching. We love you guys and stay 2A strong out there, just like A and A said. We'll see you soon. Semper Fi.
Arm the women.